Okay, so we're gonna sew a buttonhole. Basically a buttonhole, we're just gonna sew, it's a little messy, a rectangle. That's it. We're sewing a rectangle so that we can cut a hole and our fabric won't fray. So I'm gonna demo it actually on 3 different machines for you guys, and you can pick your favorite one and just do one machine. You don't have to do all 3, but I like to show you the different ones because home machines are so different, and that way I want you to be able to do it at home on your machine. So basically what your home machines do is that they sew a zigzag, then they sew a fatter zigzag, but without going forward, and then they sew another zigzag, and then one really fat zigzag. That's it. And then you get your scissors and you cut open the hole. Easy peasy, right? That's all a buttonhole really is a lot of stitching to keep your fabric from fraying. Okay, so does anyone have a machine that has this dial on their machine? Does that look familiar to anyone?
A long time ago.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's an older model, but I'm gonna show you anyways. So it's supposed to be an automatic buttonhole, but it's sewing a rectangle for you, and then you can cut it open. So yeah, so let's do that. That's the easiest way to show you this. Okay, so to set it up, you have to set a short stitch length. This is our little stitch length dial, so we want it short. So I'm gonna do it a little bit more than 0, a little bit less than 1. And I think everything else just is normal settings. I don't even worry about, well, my zigzag's usually on 0, so I can sew a straight line. So I'll put that back to 0, and it'll automatically change it for me. Straight stitch setting's fine. Okay, so really it should be just ready to go for a straight stitch. The only change I made was doing a shorter stitch length. Okay, then I need to put on the correct presser foot. Has anyone had a foot like this guy before? Cool. There's my foot. So the thing with the buttonhole is you need to know how big your button is. And I'm gonna line up the bottom of my button. Try to make sure you guys can see it. There's a little red line, and then this guy slides. So I'm gonna line up my button to the bottom where that red line is, and then I'm lining up my little slider to the top of it. And I always do a test one, if I can, on my scrap fabric to make sure that it's the right size, the right length. Alrighty. Okay, I'm gonna get my fabric, put the presser foot down, and I go to step number 1 on the dial. Okay, and it is sewing a zigzag, but it's going forward, and you can kind of see that red slider moving. I just keep sewing until that little red slider meets the red pointer. There we go. So there we go, so I did it. So it's met. So I just sewed the side, one of the sides of my buttonhole. So now I'm gonna change my dial to step number 2, and I believe it just goes back to where it started. Let's find out. It's just going back. So now I'm watching that slider, and when that little red guy gets to the first gray mark, 0, I can stop. Okay. So now it's gonna sew that wide zigzag that would be like the top of my buttonhole. So to do that, change it to number 3. That's enough. I don't want to do it too much or it'll get too bulky and kind of jam. And now I'm going to change it to number 4, and it's going to do the other side. So I got to watch that slider, and when they meet, I stop. Cool, I think we're good. And then now I sew the bottom part of the buttonhole, a little guy. Change it to number 5. And that's enough. Now, if I do number 6, it's just gonna sew backwards, and sometimes it gets just stuck because it's kind of bulky. So I always skip 6. I don't really need to go backwards. But I mean, we could try it. It's not really that exciting. Yeah, see, it won't even go backwards. I'll have to pull it. It's a mess. So I skip 6 and I go to 0 so that the next person who sews, it's not on the buttonhole device. And I lift up my presser foot and I pull it out. And then I cut open my buttonhole. So I'm gonna show you how to do that right. Okay, so now we just have to cut open the buttonhole and we're good to go. So the way I was taught is you're supposed to put a pin in front of like your little bar tack that you have, and this is gonna prevent you from accidentally ripping past it. Put one on both sides. And then you use a seam ripper. You just kind of go in and rip it open. And then by having that pin there, it's supposed to prevent you from ripping too far. So a little. Okay. That's the way I was taught. A lot of times I will just get scissors and kind of snip it, and I'll show you that way next. Okay, so here's another sewing machine. Do you guys have machines that have this on it, like electric choices?
Yes.
Electronic?
Yes.
Does that look familiar? Okay. Okay, cool. So the electric modern machine. So let's take a look at this guy. Okay, so this is it plain? Oh, yeah. This is the buttonhole presser foot you'll need, and you also need to know the size of your button. I'll grab that green one I was using. And you can actually just put it in the back and it slides down. And then this, sorry, there we are, I'm gonna show you. It's typical. There we are. And it slides down. And then this little guy, he's like a sensor that talks to the machine, and it just knows how big to make the button automatically, which is great. There's some fabric that I feel like I need my buttonhole slightly smaller. So if that ever happens to me, I take out my button and I just push this down a little bit extra. That's but this is what controls how big to make the hole. So I'm gonna trust it and try to copy what we have. Okay, great. So now I have to put it in the machine. I'm gonna lift up the presser foot. This guy, he goes in pretty easy, just snaps down and he's on. Now, for the machine to know how big to make your buttonhole, and this is where it's a real easy step to miss. There's this lever. You have to pull down that lever, the buttonhole lever, and then it touches your presser foot. So that's the sensor where it knows how long to make your buttonhole. So this lever, it's up when you sew regular sewing, and then we pull it down, make sure it's behind there for buttonholes. To do the buttonhole is on the industrial machine. If we open up the back, there is a little lever that we can change the length. Okay, so to change, sometimes that was connected, sometimes I push that back, it helps me. And then now I push back the machine. Let's see if I can get that on camera. Oh, there we go.
What's the piece number? And you say how many?
Great. There we are.
That's the collar. So that's number 15.
And right here is where we can change the button size. So right now, looks like this is the little thing. It's only 3/8 inch wide of a buttonhole. I'm gonna change it to be a 5/8 inch. Lefty loosey. I'm gonna slide the slider to 5/8 inch. Righty tighty. This thing moves, I don't know why, but there we go. Righty tighty. Okay. Now the hard part is putting it back for some reason. So gentle. You have to get this to snap back. And I don't know the easy way to do that. So I usually just run the machine once or twice. It gets it to go. For some reason, that gets it to work. Come on. This is why I don't change the size that often, because for some reason it's so hard to get it back. There it goes. Yay, it's back in. Cool. It's been changed. Okay. So now we can do 5/8 inch. buttonhole. So the thing with this buttonhole machine is that it sews the button inside this frame. So if you have, like, let's say I want to sew on top where this red one is, I would not line up the bottom with the needle here because it's going to sew it in the frame. So I would line up this part underneath the needle and then it sews it here inside the frame. That's one mistake a lot of people kind of make on accident. I do have a blade right here. I kind of took it out because, but it just goes right here and it actually cuts my hole for me. Okay, so I turn it on. Now I'm gonna show you about the foot pedal. Okay, pretend my hand is the foot pedal. The foot pedal, I would say maybe he's at a 45-degree angle where I'm just gonna put my foot on it and I'm gonna push it so it touches the ground. Boom, 0 degrees, up. That's it. So my foot's gonna go boom and then take it off. And it's gonna be 45 degree again. Sometimes what people do, they're like a little afraid and they push it so it goes right here. And then the machine just sews and sews and sews in circles. You have to hit it all the way on the ground. So it's really easy. I just go boom, up, off, done, easy. But if you're timid, it messes up, I guess. That's what I want to say. So, okay, here I go. Okay, on button, there's an on button down here. All right, here I go. Hopefully I put the needle in correctly. Yeah, it worked. Did it good? Does the pressure foot go down or no? It goes down when you hit the foot pedal. It's like a package deal. So you don't do anything. You just hit the presser foot. Okay, ready? My foot's on the presser foot, and okay. Foot is on the presser foot and down. Yeah, down up. So there we go. So it just got on my eye. So you mark it. Yeah, and that's why it's good to practice with some scrap fabric for sure. Quality, we do have the option of running it 2 times in a row. You just hold down the foot pedal so that the machine does the buttonhole twice. So let's try that. That's a little bit thicker than the first one. Okay, so the other half of the buttonhole sample is you have to sew in your button. If you have, let's see if I can get this guy at the right spot, a flat button, kind of like this green one right here, you can use the machine, which I love to do. But if you have a button that has a shank, you have to do it by hand, so you just get a needle and thread. And this is where I double up my needle, my thread, I mean. You know, when we do the hand stitches, I don't like to double it up. But with you're sewing a button on, I don't mind it. And you just go back and forth and sew it on. But I'm gonna demo how to sew this guy on the machine. You're gonna love it. Okay, so to do the button on the machine, you need a special foot. This foot here. What it's going to sew the buttonhole in between these little blue lines, and this is assuming that your buttonhole is a standard size.
It's good for 2 holes.
So I'm going to pull.
That's too much for a home machine to do.
So this can go back up. We don't need him down anymore. Okay, let's put my presser. Okay, it's on. So now I get my button. And I have to line up my 2 holes in between the little feet. Do you guys see that? Okay. Then I have to choose the button, electronic button on the machine. So the buttonhole in this machine is number 61. So I'll just go next. There it is. It says 61. So that's, okay. Now I don't just hit the green button this time. This time I use the hand wheel to make sure the needle's actually gonna go into the buttonhole and not break my needle. So, turning the hand wheel. Okay, that one fits, that's good. I'm gonna keep turning the hand wheel, keep turning the hand wheel. Oh, there it goes, okay. There we go. So you can see it went into the hole on the right and it went into the hole on the left and my needle did not break, okay? It didn't hit the plastic. So it's good to do that by the hand needle, and then all I have to do is hit the little green button, which I wanna show you guys where that is. Just that little green button. And then it sewed my button for me. And I'm done. And then if I would like to do, I could then just say cut, and it cut my thread for me, which is neat. And I lift up my presser foot and I pull it out, and then I could trim off the last thread. And that's it. So that's a nice, easy way to sew the buttons on too, instead of using a hand needle and thread, if you guys want. So there you go. Those are the notebook samples for today.